Welcome everybody to our next panel at the Planet MicroCap Showcase Virtual. I'm your host for the event, Robert Kraft, and thank you all for joining us today. This panel coming up is titled The Global Cannabis Industry in 2021, and it is being hosted by none other than David Lachtman from the Benchmark Company. We're so happy that David is here to host this panel. He actually hosted another cannabis panel that we did back in August, and he is one of the best. So with that, David, take it away.
Thank you, Bobby. Welcome all to the 2021 Planet Micro Global Cannabis Panel. Hopefully we'll all be in person in Vegas for it next year. I was hoping we would all be there at this moment. Anyway, I'm David Lachtman. I'm a managing director in the investment banking department at Benchmark. We are a full service investment banking firm. We have 19 senior publishing research analysts. We have sales, trading, and investment banking. And we do everything from capital raises to M&A advisory to fairness opinions and so on. Anyway, this year we have leadership from 4 companies in the cannabis space. And rather exciting, it's a global group this year. We have 2 companies from Canada, one from the UK and one from the US. We're going to touch on some very interesting themes today, such as delivery and how that has become such an important solution that has been accelerated by COVID. Additionally, we're going to look at medical versus rec markets and also the rise of brands, which we are seeing in certain markets, but of course not others, where in some of the medical and still more highly regulated markets, they're very limited on what they can show in terms of branding and marketing. With me today, we have John Arbuthnot from Delta-9 in Canada, George Scorsis from WeedMD in Canada. We have Adam Berk from Driven by STEM in the US, and we have Dean Friday from the Lyphe Group in Great Britain or the United Kingdom. Dean, you'll let us know what you prefer. So I'm going to pass the virtual mic around so that each executive can introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about their respective companies. So why don't we start in Canada with John at Delta-9.
Yeah, thanks very much, David. My name's John Arbuthnot. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Delta-9 Cannabis. Delta-9 is one of the oldest Canadian cannabis operators, founded in 2012. 2013, we became the 4th licensed commercial cultivator of medical cannabis under the previous Health Canada MMPR program. Early years of the company were quite modest as a small, privately held, licensed cultivator distributing products to medical patients. 2017 became the real growth year for us. We raised about $10 million throughout the year and listed our shares on the Toronto Venture Exchange in November 2017 in advance of legalization here in Canada. Since that time, we've raised about $85 million through a mix of debt and equity to fund the expansion of our various businesses. We now operate as one of the few vertically integrated and diversified names in the Canadian space with 3 main business segments. First is our Health Canada licensed cultivation, manufacturing and distribution business, operating an 80,000 square foot cultivation facility, manufacturing Delta-9 branded consumer packaged cannabis flower, pre-rolls, vape carts, ingestible oils, and cannabis concentrates, and distributing that across 6 Canadian provinces, representing upwards of 25 million potential Canadian consumers. We also operate a chain of bricks and mortar retail stores, again under the Delta-9 brand. So 12 bricks and mortar retail stores, as well as servicing direct to consumer online across 3 provincial markets. And we offer a business to business and infrastructure segment, selling our proprietary grow pod, selling cultivation equipment, providing consulting and licensing services for new and startup cannabis businesses to become involved in the cannabis space. Those 3 business segments together have provided significant growth for our company in the wake of legalization here in Canada. Company recently released Q4 and year-end results for 2020, showing over 52 million in top-line revenue and significant growth year over year, as well as positive adjusted EBITDA. Company shares now trade on the main board Toronto Stock Exchange under the symbol DN, and over the counter in the United States under the symbol DLTNF.
Very good. Thanks, John. I'd like to pass it along to George at WeedMD now.
Yeah, thank you for having me today. I'm George Scorsis, the executive chairman of WeedMD. WeedMD most recently has gone through quite a vast transformation in an amalgamation of two separate companies, one being WeedMD, which is the primary company that's listed on the TSX-V, but also through the acquisition of Starseed, which was a leading medical platform. What we essentially do is we participate in both spaces with adult use brands, both Color and Saturday. But most importantly is our medical platform that deals almost 100% with a paid insured model. It's quite unique to the Canadian space that we actually have clients and patients that are insured fully through major insurers across Canada, and we have a direct service to them, and we have an exclusivity to that group. In our adult use, we participate in 7 different markets across the country. We are vertically integrated. We have a cultivation platform. We have over 158 acres of land that we cultivate. We also have over 500,000 square feet. But I would say that what makes us distinct is we don't focus on large scale. We focus more on the quality of our product. We also have a processing facility outside of London, Ontario, that we make different brands, inclusive of brands that we have licensing with from the US, such as Mary's Medicinal. We also have packs and our in-house brands of both Color and Saturday. The company is quite unique in the sense that our largest shareholder is a pension fund. And again, a very distinct aspect of our business is that our largest shareholder is also one of our largest patient groups. We are well capitalized with over $30 million currently of cash. We are really looking towards a transitional year by putting both of these entities together.
Very good, thank you. So I'd like to pass it to Adam from Driven by STEM next, and when he wraps up, Dean from Lyphe Group will introduce the company.
Thank you, David. My name's Adam Berk. I'm the founder, CEO, and chairman of STEM Holdings, currently known as Driven by STEM. We're traded in the US on the OTCQX under the symbol STMH and on the CSE as STEM. We are truly the first multi-state integrated farm-to-home, both cultivation and technology omni-channel cannabis company. We are connecting world-class cannabis and hemp brands with consumers and communities and have a major focus on building our brands and our brand loyalty. We currently cultivate organic and sustainable cannabis utilizing no-till living soil. We process and extract utilizing multiple methods from solventless to ethanol and have an award-winning edible brand. We have multiple retail locations in the states where we operate and just acquired a very prominent delivery platform. We operate in California, Oregon, Nevada, and Massachusetts. Our brands include TJ's Gardens, Travis and James, Yerba Buena on the flower side. On the edible side, Carnivore is our award-winning edible brand, and we have both the TJ's and STEM retail footprint. Once COVID happened, I realized that we needed to be in the last mile delivery business. And I truly believe that buying behavior has completely changed for not just this industry, but every industry going forward. And that's why STEM went out and we acquired Driven Deliveries, which was the second largest cannabis delivery company in California. It operates 2 brands, Buddy.org and Ganja Runner. And we now have in California 250 drivers, 3 non-storefront retail delivery hubs, and we do over 1,000 deliveries per day. STEM truly believes that e-commerce and delivery is going to be the future of the cannabis business here in the US.
Great, Dean.
Cool, thanks very much, guys. My name is Dean Friday. I'm the CEO and co-founder of the Lyphe Group over here in the UK, across the pond. We are the largest medical cannabis business in the UK, both by patient numbers and by revenues. And our goal is to replicate that business model across multiple markets in Europe. We operate at the intersection of health tech and medical cannabis. We operate a vertically integrated business. We don't cultivate, but we do manufacture, we import, we provide clinical care and dispensing services. Our clinical consultations are conducted entirely via telemedicine, and we own an online or distance selling pharmacy, as we call it over here in the UK. So as I mentioned before, we have a really significant market share. We have 60% of the private patients that are in the UK. And our focus as a business is on downstream activities. So we want to operate direct to patient, and we want to own that customer relationship. We see building brands, similar to a lot of the other panelists here, as being the best way to build long-term value in this market. And as an extension of that, we want to build the most recognized cannabis clinics brand, cannabis specialist pharmacy brand, and medical cannabis products brand. We are operating, as I mentioned before, in the UK, but we're in process on doing on expansion into other European markets.
Very good, thank you. All right, guys. So look, first off here, we're going to do a question that I want to have everyone answer because it'll show the uniqueness in each company. What we're going to do is we're basically going to reverse the order that we just did in the introduction. So we're going to start with Dean having the first shot at the answer, and then go to Adam, then George, then to John. Okay. The first question is, how are you driving profitability and margins? What are the key aspects of your business model that you're focusing on leveraging to drive the bottom line?
We drive profitability and margins, I guess, principally by buying really well. We've got a really significant market share, as we mentioned before. There's very limited channels into the UK market. And so that gives us the ability to be able to buy very well and high quality, affordably priced, and secure delivery is, I guess, the key parameters that we work on in terms of what we see in terms of sourcing product into the UK market. Look, in addition to that, we're quite a well-trained business with regards to technology and the application of technology into business processes. The medical cannabis market is a pretty administratively heavy business. And so managing those aspects is absolutely critical in terms of how we drive profitability in our business. You can quite easily become pretty overladen with administrative burden in this business, and then I guess continue to hire staff and to compensate and to deal with that additional workload. And so continuous business process improvement and automation in our back-end business processes is really important in terms of driving profitability.
Okay. And Dean, before we move on, I think we just need to ask, I mean, you have such a massive market share there. How high are the barriers to entry? And do you expect, it to open up with more competition or licenses being given out, in the months or year or two to come?
Yeah, look, the barriers to entry are significant. There's pharmacy licenses, there's clinics licenses. We're one of the 4 dedicated medical cannabis clinics in the UK. There's importation and wholesale distribution licenses as well to boot. In addition to that, we also have an accredited online education platform. So there are, to replicate the business would be expensive, time consuming, and quite difficult. So yeah, the barriers to entry are quite significant. Do we expect it to change over time? Of course, it's going to change over time. But look, we've been able to establish quite a critical mass and a very strong position in the market to date. And so we're certainly going to leverage that in the coming years.
Great, good to know. All right, Adam.
Yeah, so we drive margin a few different ways in our business because remember, not only are we vertically integrated, we're touching so many different aspects of our business. And really in the US, you have to run your business state by state as its own real business unit. I would say the first thing that we're doing is we're a very flat organization. I think that that's very important. Our teams are cross-trained throughout the entire ecosystem of Driven by STEM. So that's definitely one of the first things. The second thing is on cultivation, extraction, and processing, we've put in multiple standard operating procedures and automated a lot of the operations there. We've also centralized as many functionalities as we could in the different states that we've been able to launch. So that's definitely number 2. On the delivery side, since we took over Driven Deliveries in the last 90 days, we've brought on over 500 new SKUs. And that is very important. And with new SKUs comes new adoption from the consumers because now that they see you have additional choice, right? So right now in California, we have over 1,000 SKUs. That allows us to buy products at the right price for the right amount of time. And those are all important things, and that helps move margin all the way down to the bottom line.
Nice, thank you. George?
I think the best way to really reflect on this and answer it is if you take a look historically what has happened in the marketplace, both the ability to raise capital has been somewhat easy, and it's developed almost a behavior of not reaching efficiencies and margin and profitability. And I think the best thing that has happened in the Canadian market as of most recently is that, capital raises are not as easy as they once were. And I think that it's actually created a better behavior, a more disciplined behavior in the marketplace. And when I reflect on our business and what we do, we are disciplined with all aspects of our business, even through the merger of the two separate entities being Starseed and WeedMD. You do these mergers to find efficiencies, and you try to understand where there's overlap and where you can find profitability, and where one and one generally does bring three. But you need to understand what the cost centers are. SG&A definitely is always the biggest spot with most of the corporations that people overlook, because capital was so easy that you became a fat organization. In the sense of constantly deploying human capital against business practices or different development programs. And I think that we scrutinize every single role within the company. We're running extremely lean. For instance, my role, I am the executive chairman and the CEO. Our C-suite has been minimized by about 50%. We've reduced our headcount by 30%. We've automated. But also we've taken a look at our practices. It's not generally about how much biomass you produce anymore. It's about the quality of the biomass. And if you continue to grow at mass amounts, you're also bringing in undisciplined practices of just having a heavy headcount towards your business. So we really scaled back and said, let's focus on higher margin products versus just any products in the marketplace. And so again, it's really about having a disciplined approach. Every cost center needs to be scrutinized. And we're looking at really turning that around. And through our M&A activity, we're actually finding efficiencies in our business as well.
Very good. Thank you. John?
Yeah, answers probably a combination of some of the answers from the previous panelists here, but for us, it's been about scale. I think the company's demonstrated Delta-9 over the last few years that we've been able to scale revenues quite successfully in the wake of legalization here in Canada. We look back to legalization, company did in the area of 7 million in top line, and again scaling that to over 52 million last year. We've demonstrated that track record for growth, but similar to George's commentary, prudent cost controls I think have been absolutely necessary in the wake of legalization. As he mentioned, the landscape has changed in terms of capital markets here in Canada. Companies are having to make good decisions in terms of deployment of capital, and as much as it's about scaling a business, it's about creating something that's sustainable and profitable. So reining in SG&A, getting the business to a point where margins are sustainable has been really key for Canadian operators over the last few years. The other key component for Delta-9 has been a diversified revenue strategy. Between those three business segments for us, just the cultivation, processing, wholesale, retail, and then B2B and infrastructure. It's given us an ability to be nimble, and where there's been a very rapidly evolving landscape here in the Canadian market in terms of, initially a very high price for flower in the wholesale market, that trending downward very quickly. Now a more rapidly evolving landscape around the number of retail stores, et cetera, where we've seen certain business segments for us underperform. Other segments have been able to take up the slack, and the company continuing to demonstrate growth across the broader consolidated group of companies. So, I think for us moving forward, it's really all about that, demonstrating that sustainable, profitable business model is possible in the Canadian cannabis marketplace.
Great, thank you. So I want to go into brands, but I think first I want to talk about payments because we have, in the US, it's very challenging with banking and payments. So I'd like to start with Adam talking about that. How do payments in the banking function within your markets? And, how is it impacting you, or, do you see room for improvements there? And then I'd like to pass it along to Dean over in the UK to understand, and then back up to Canada. So I imagine we have the most restrictive markets around it in the US, and Adam can share some of those concerns with you around how it impacts the business.
Yeah, so on the corporate banking side, every license where we operate has its own local bank account. So we're banked with local credit unions such as Salal Credit Union, Maps Rate Credit Union, North Bay Credit Union, or First Federal. They know the business we're in. We file reports on a monthly and quarterly basis. They audit our books and records. They have to match up with our Green Bits POS system reports. Everything's ticked and tied. So there's an arduous administrative process on our side that we have to go through to make sure that we maintain these bank accounts in the proper form and fashion. On the other piece, remember, we're running a very large delivery business, and we have to operate that in both cash and debit card processing. We know that once safe banking gets passed, and we're hopeful that Q4 or Q1, we should see some movement here on this, that at that point in time, we'll be able to process credit cards. And at that point in time, I believe that the adoption rate on what we're doing, which is e-commerce and delivery, will be tenfold, if not higher. It'll be much easier for people that are sitting home that want to get cannabis delivered to their home to actually pay via credit card versus having to go out to an ATM and get cash and then come back home and then place that order. Because as you know, once they're out, they're out. They're not necessarily going to come back home to the house to make that purchase. Additionally, on the banking side here in the US, which is closely related, but that people forget about, is something called the Claim Act that people are working towards, and that has to do with insurance. And insurance and banking are both very closely tied. Now, we are highly insured in all the markets that we operate in, but we're paying 10 times the amount in premiums and rates than any other operator that operates in Canada, for instance, or any other business that's in a different industry. And that's because there's only two insurance companies that really underwrite our industry. So between Safe Banking and Claim Act, hopefully getting passed later this year or early next year, I think that will open up a lot of opportunities for us. And then hopefully credit card processing will actually open up a lot more on our day-to-day business as well.
And so with safe banking, you'd probably expect to get some efficiencies within your organization as well, where you're not running separate bank accounts and ticking and tying everything in each individual market you operate in, huh?
Absolutely. It'll be much easier to consolidate all the bank accounts to one bank where we can do direct payments, we can issue checks, we can do wires in and out with one login versus having 12 logins.
It's a lot to track. All right. So Dean, tell us a little bit about how the banking and payments function over in the UK.
Look, I don't want to make you guys jealous, but it's a little bit easier over here. Look, we sit a little bit closer to the pharmaceutical sector. At least that's how it's viewed over here now. I mean, I can't say that it's always been easy. In the very early stages of the sector, it was challenging just to get a bank account, but that passed pretty quickly. And we're with a mainstream, high street bank, as we call it over here in the UK. So we don't have the problems that you guys face, especially over there in the US. Having said that, payment platforms is a bit of a challenge, but again, we've never been without a payment platform. It's just a little bit more expensive, and you kind of have to go off the high street, if you know what I mean. But yeah, can't relate entirely to the problems you guys are facing over that side.
So are credit cards are easy for you to process? Is that a normal way of payment?
Yeah, that's what I mean by payment platforms. Credit card processing, yeah, that's not a problem. Again, look, we've had trouble from time to time. You're finding a new one, but we've never been without. So it's not a problem that we've actually found to be problematic or impeded with our business in any way.
Yeah, very, very good. John, how's it work for you guys?
Things have really kind of come full circle here in the Canadian space. It wasn't uncommon, back 2013, 14 to really struggle to find, a key banking partner as the industry kind of rolled out in its infancy. Now that we have full federal legalization, very fortunate on the Canadian side of the border, we have participation from, most, if not all, major banking institutions in the industry. Credit card processing, we deal with all major credit cards through our retail stores now. Payment processing is as seamless as frankly any industry from that perspective. We're all fortunate in that with the federally legalized environment and a maturing industry, we do have participation from major banks in terms of providing access to conventional credit facilities. So Delta 9 was one of the first Canadian license holders to acquire a conventional credit facility, a mixture of everything from commercial mortgage, term loans, revolving facilities as a part of that. So we have been fortunate that evolution of the industry and federal legalization has led to that type of structure, which allows for not only access to payment processing, but also access to capital from conventional banking facilities.
Impressive. George?
Yeah, I think John really laid out the Canadian landscape. We're quite fortunate to not have any barriers to payment. Pretty much, we're even extending, for our business, because we focus so extensively on the medical platform, where it's a direct payment and a direct shipment in Canada. We're quite fortunate to offer everything from credit card to e-transfers. But in addition to that, alternative payment methodologies. What's unique to WeedMD and our Starseed model is that the majority of our patients have a paid insured model that their payment is actually done through their insurance provider. So they generally do not need to provide any form of payment. It is just covered instantly. They don't have to wait any time to be reimbursed, and it just goes to show you how far the Canadian landscape has gone, because it's accepted by now the major insurers, where in the US, they're still trying to find challenges with credit cards. And so I think you see the variance in all the different marketplaces. And I think, there's going to be a point where the US comes to the same point as Canada. And I think UK is somewhere in the middle. And we're quite fortunate in Canada.
Yeah. Wow. All right, Adam, now we know what we have to look forward to here in the US eventually.
I mean, these guys are all making me jealous,
So much easier. All right, so guys, I think next I want to get into branding a little bit, and we're going to start with George, because he's got some CPG background, and then we'll pass it over to John, we'll go to Dean, and then we'll go to Adam. So when we think about brands, I mean, there's a couple things here. I mean, it's I realize that in some markets the regulatory limitations really don't even allow for much branding or marketing, and I'm a California kid, born and raised. So, obviously when people are talking about cannabis brands, everyone looks to California to see what's coming out of here. And we have over 1,000 brands that have been competing here for the last several years. And, probably the top 50 are really the only ones that have viability and are, making a reasonable amount of, revenue. So, understanding those nuances, I just want to throw it out there to the team, because we're really seeing a focus on, some of the public companies wanting to come in now and do brand roll-ups in California. So I'm curious, in your respective markets, how are brands evolving? What are you guys doing within your companies? Do you have your own brands which you're focused on building, or do you have certain partnerships or brands that you carry that are a focus? And do you have customers that are actually coming to you in searching for certain brands now? Like, I saw a Brightfield report recently that listed brands that were very well recognized in both California and Colorado. And you see names like Cookies and Kiva and Stizzy, as a few that really ranked very highly. So it's interesting to see how that's starting to evolve. So anyway, George, that's my me kind of freewheeling here on that, but you get the idea of the thought process around brands and what I'd love to hear about from you.
Yeah, I think historically throughout my entire career, building brands has been a lot easier than within the cannabis space, especially so in Canada. We have one of the most restrictive marketplaces in terms of building brands, just because of our label and packaging restrictions. And to a certain degree, it's we're doing the consumer a disservice from understanding the difference in the offerings to the consumer. Mostly that's done through brands and what they offer. Now, with that being said, I don't want to diminish the importance of brands, even in Canada, because brands, you are seeing them being built, and you are seeing them being bought, and you are seeing them being licensed in Canada. And what I mean is we have our in-house brands, which are both Color and Saturday, that participate in the retail space. And we have a very high level of focus on Color as our, what we would call our premium offering. We also license brands. For instance, Mary's Medicinals. We have the license for it in Canada, and we recognize for a wellness brand that it had a great position, and we've decided to bring it to Canada within our portfolio. But I think it's important to also recognize, if you see what happened over the last few weeks, through what Canopy has done through their latest acquisitions, they acquired Ace Valley, which was an up-and-coming brand in Canada. They also acquired Supreme. So again, it goes to, you either build it or you buy it or you license it, and they bought it. They spent almost $500 million between those two brands in purchasing. And so I think brands are going to become more important. We're seeing, cookies come into Canada, into the Canadian space. We are still the largest federally regulated market to date. And I think it still gives us an opportunity to build brands, but I do think that we're a little bit hindered in terms of our packaging regulations. And I think John can really articulate from a retail space how that's impacting him.
No, for sure. Good segue, George. I mean, it's almost awkward to see here in Canada. You walk into a liquor store and you have, hundreds, if not thousands, of different SKUs of product out there on the shelves, and with very little by way of, restriction around labeling and how those brands are presented to the consumer. And conversely, you come into a cannabis retail store, and there are certain provincial markets in our country where products cannot even be displayed behind the counter. So it's a very different environment. And then to pile on top of that, again, fairly plain packaging restrictions, onerous restrictions around brand elements that can be presented on packaging, and virtually total restrictions around advertising, whether that be conventional TV, radio type advertising, or in print, or now digital. A very tough landscape north of the border here. I think it's been interesting to see the evolution. Day one of legalization here in Canada, we really had consumers more gravitating towards different call it product categories, whether that be high THC, or they're a CBD consumer, or they fall into vapes or flower or pre-rolls, or one of those product categories, versus necessarily having a brand affiliation. But we are now starting to see, and in just the last, I would say 2 or 3 quarters, consumers coming into retail stores, they've started to zero in not only on that product category that makes sense for them, but they may be requesting a Delta 9 branded product, or a Color branded product. And they're starting to develop that brand alignment. So I think, we are starting to see the winners emerge. Again, you have the Canopies of the space looking to buy brands outright. And otherwise, I think there's been a real focus from a lot of producers on zeroing in on standardization of product, targeting high quality. It's not just about producing a quality product once and getting that into the market. It's that reproducibility component. So I think we're starting to see that evolution, and you're starting to see the winners and losers in the Canadian market as brands begin to evolve.
Very good. Dean?
Look, we're definitely operating in that more regulated end of the market that you were referring to, David, being a pure play medical market in virtually all markets across Europe. And with cannabis commonly classified as an unlicensed or a magistral product in Europe, means that brand really doesn't come into play yet. It's probably going to change in the near future, but look, what that means over here at the moment and the current state of play is that you can't talk about brands, you can't promote products, you can't advertise, and you can't market. Look, we're very fortunate. We have such a significant share of market, and our brand is we have a lot of brand recognition across patients and doctors, across the UK. What we can talk about is our medical cannabis clinics, and we can talk about our distance selling pharmacy, which is a really important direct-to-consumer portal, which will come into play in the longer term for us. But at this point in time, product brands are very difficult to or impossible to talk about.
So Dean, if a patient comes to buy some flower from Lyphe Group, what does that come in? What does the package look like?
So, well, look, I mean, what will happen is a patient won't come to Lyphe to buy cannabis. They'll come to see one of our doctors through our clinics. They'll be prescribed what is most applicable to their condition, whether that be flower in small packages or in oil in 30 to 50 ml bottles, with usually in tincture form. So that's the most common and the format which doctors and patients are most familiar with at the moment. We haven't touched edibles or we don't have very many alternative methods or products at this point in time in the medical space. We're still a very early stage market, but that's how it works in general in our processes.
Got it. Thanks. So Adam, I know from looking at one of your California delivery platforms, you guys have a lot of brands, great number of SKUs on there, as you mentioned earlier, a lot of my favorites and things I look for. So tell us a little bit about that. And then, I understand you have some of your own brands, which you guys have been building, and you talk about the farm to home. Tell us a little bit more about that and what brands you have focused in that segment as well.
Sure. So, like I said, when we first took over Driven Deliveries, they had about 500 SKUs with about 25 vendors. And what I realized from my days of building the first online food ordering company, people want choice. Consumers want to see a lot of choice, and they want some of the best brands that they can get their hands on. So over the last 90 days, like I said, we increased the SKU platform to over 1,000 SKUs on the platform. Brands mean everything. We operate in rec markets: Oregon, California, Nevada, Massachusetts. We're able to promote our brands. We're able to invest in packaging, colorful messaging. But at the end of the day, it has to be great product inside. And I think that that's something that sometimes gets lost, is that people don't realize it's not just the pretty packaging. It's the great flower inside. It's the great edible inside. It's the great way that they're processing. So once again, choice, you need that for the consumer. They want to see some really good brands. And at the same time, investing in consistent products. So that feeds into the next piece of the question that you asked, is about our own brands, right? So Travis and James, TJ's Gardens, and Yerba Bueno, all of our flower brands, they all stand for something, right? They're all grown organic and in a sustainable method. They're all grown in no-till living soil. It's a unique platform. Most growers cannot grow in that sort of medium. We've been able to commercialize that in all the markets that we currently operate. People know that when they come into a store and they ask for a TJ's Garden product, what it means. They know it has high quality, and they know that all the standards that are behind it. Sometimes it's in packaging and in finished packaged goods, like in Nevada, or it might be in a bulk style, like it is in Oregon. So once again, sometimes it doesn't necessarily mean the packaging, it just means the great product. Then on the edible side, on our brand Carnivore, we're doing things a little bit differently. We're using solventless extract. Most edibles companies are not using solventless extract. They're using a distillate or some sort of CO2 extract. But once again, we want to take it to the next level. Once again, it's all about good inputs, give you good outputs. And I think that that's what the consumers are demanding, especially on the West Coast, where, David, you're at, right? Where most of our operations are. We have a robust consumer network that is a mature network, right? And these users have been around for a while. They're familiar with the brands, and they consistently make us be better, right? Day in and day out. They make us innovate. And that's why we're seeing so much of the innovation coming from the West Coast. It will get to the East Coast sooner or later, but most of it's all derived from the West Coast, as you alluded to. Oregon, California, Washington, Nevada, that's where we're seeing the best innovation.
Right. We've seen products hit the market where they've done a great job with packaging and promotions and, you know, all of their marketing capabilities, and the product's just not that great. And you know what? People don't buy it again. It's really about, you know, that kind of consistency of product. So I guess that, you know, brings me back to our last question, which we can address to the group, and then we'll get into a few questions targeted at some specific companies. So, you know, the next question for the group is, what do you think cannabis companies will need to be the most mindful of in order to be successful and reach sustainable profitability now and into the future? So George and Adam are both unmuted, so who wants to go first?
Adam, take the first one.
Yeah, I could definitely jump in first. So I think that this consumer is sophisticated, and we have to meet their needs, right? Now, in certain countries, you potentially can't, right? Whether you have to have low THC or CBD, or it has to be a specific form factor. But here in the US, we have the opportunity to meet the needs of the consumers. And that is very important. That's why certain companies will be successful and certain companies just won't, right? So I think in major CPG businesses, they know what the consumers want. They do proper surveys. They're in touch with their consumer base. And I think the US cannabis operators need to get closer to their consumers to make sure that they're filling the needs of them. That's why on my side, my chief operating officer, a woman named Ellen Deutsch, she came from Hanes Celestial. She was the chief growth officer there for 22 years. She's in touch with building brands on the CPG side of the house. She understands what consumer wants, and she forces us to innovate to make sure we meet the needs of those consumers.
Nice.
Yeah. I think Adam hit the nail on the head in many ways, and I would agree with him. And maybe because we're like-minded from our backgrounds, but you know, one area I would say, if anything can be a learning, Canada should be the best learning globally. Everyone did not think about the consumer; they thought about scale in the capital markets, and they've reverse engineered it towards the consumer was the last aspect of their thought process. And I think what you're seeing today, and basically based on most recent transactions you're seeing within some of the larger Canadian participants, is the consumer is actually dictating now the sales and the till. And they've gone back to a few aspects. And John can reflect on this when he speaks about his retail in Canada, but the consumer is looking for quality now. They are dissecting, how is this grown? What are the terpene profiles? What is the quality of the flower? Is it hang dried or is it speed dried? And these are the things, is it solventless? Is it just a distillate? They are asking these questions. They're becoming a lot more sophisticated in their behavior and their purchasing behavior. And I think that they are zeroing in on actual products now and brands, even though our branding restrictions have been quite restrictive. If you look at the latest read in Canada, both Canopy and Aurora lost share significantly in Canada. There's a reason why. The consumer is starting to redirect their purchasing behavior towards growers, participants, vertically integrated LPs that are actually working and developing quality products like WeedMD. We may not be the biggest, and many of us may not be the biggest, but we are focusing on quality, and the consumer is starting to understand that, and we're starting to win that market share back. So you're almost seeing a reverse engineering of what is happening. Within our organizations, we also need to understand that. So we've designed our company to be somewhat of a mix of a CPG platform through our research, but also have legacy type growers to really blend that together to bring quality and research together.
And I just want to echo that, it's very important to have that mix inside your organization, right? So the legacy operators that operated here in the US, combining that with the entrepreneurial spirit, right? Because remember, these are still startup businesses, especially in the US, no matter how big they are, we're all still startups, right? And then also bringing in some of that CPG, experience. And on top of what George just alluded to, whether it was hang dry, but also, is it hand trimmed, right? So a lot of the users want to know, how are you actually processing the flower? How are you growing the flower? What type of nutrients are you using? They want consistency as well, right? So consistency of the packaging, but they also want changes of, maybe it's a new sort of strain or genetic that you're developing internally. And that's where you're starting to see the cross section of bringing in that legacy cultivation with some R&D and science and innovation, all very important. When we started out in this industry a few years ago, initially people were saying, well, I want the highest THC products, right?
That's what sold, right? It was like the highest THC is fetching the highest dollar, so pack it in.
That's right.
That's all people thought about.
And we're seeing this transformation now. It's not just highest THC, but are there ratios of THC to CBD inside the flower, right? So there's some genetics we grow that has 15% THC and 8% CBD, right? Or the reverse, 15% CBD and 8% THC. And then what is the terpene profile, as George alluded to as well? People are looking for that. The labs are testing for it, and this is what the consumers want.
Yeah, it's a great point, Adam. And I kind of liken it in many ways. It's similar to wine and craft beer. It's similar to food. I'm a little bit of a food nut, health nut out here in California, being born and raised here. It's like, I want to know all about my food. Where did it come from? Where was the chicken raised? Can I see the whole file on it? Right? Just like in that Portlandia episode where, they order the chicken and they bring out the whole file on it, right? It's funny, but yeah, I think consumers care about that. It's, everyone's not just looking for something that fits in one package and is very generic. So yeah, people are getting interested in quality and all that goes along with it. John, any thoughts here on this subject?
Yeah, it's a consumer-centric approach. I mean, it's funny you mentioned, Adam, people coming into the stores and really just, what's the highest THC at the lowest price? And, we are still seeing some of that sentiment in the Canadian market. It's certainly not as evolved as a market like California or some of the longer running markets in the US. But, you're starting to see, I think, from the good producers and manufacturers of the space, that consumer-centric approach. I think there's an ability to create brands more behind quality, and especially the distinctiveness of some of the cannabis derivative products that have rolled out over the last year in the Canadian market, where you can see that focus on quality. Our approach and why we like to vertically integrate into the retail segment is really to have that finger on the pulse from consumers, get that live feedback on what brands are working, what price points are working, what products are interesting for consumers, and really getting that live feedback that comes from, processing thousands and thousands of transactions and thousands of touch points with consumers on a daily basis. So, I think, the winners at the end of the day are going to be those companies that have focused on the end consumer, that have created value, that have created quality and a standardized brand platform that consumers can begin to count on.
Very good, thanks. So, Dean, what do you got?
Look, we operate in a medical market, so for us the approach is a little bit different. Sustainability and profitability for us will depend on us continuing to buy well. It's going to depend upon us building our business to provide the same quality patient care, patient service, and product quality as we get busier and as we scale.
Right. Let's face it, Dean, you got 60% market share. So, we understand if you can just, shave off a little bit of cost on what you need to buy for your supply, you're going to be in good shape. So let's see here. Where do we go now? I'll tell you what. Let's throw this one over to Dean, because I think a lot of people are going to be listening are really going to care about the UK, and it's I don't think it's a market a lot of us know about. So it does appear the UK appears to be emerging as one of the most attractive markets in Europe, if not the most attractive. What can you tell us about how it's opening up and how Lyphe Group is poised to take advantage of it?
You're absolutely right. All reports that we're reading, and certainly our experience on the ground, suggests that the UK is the fastest accelerating market in Europe. The advocacy groups in the UK are doing really well. And look, us as a business, we're seeing patient numbers and revenue numbers increase double digits month on month on month. So look, in addition to that, the NHS, the public health system over here, is conducting its first trials, which is a great sign. It's signaled that it's taking a slower and more methodical approach. Conducting trials on each condition seems to be the way in which they're going to approach it. But yeah, certainly we had a first mover advantage in the market. We established ourselves early, and we're able to build our infrastructure and our integrated business model early, which has enabled us to take that critical mass. So look, we operate a very effective performance marketing team, which has delivered fantastic results so far. We have got a critical mass and I guess some really strong bargaining power in the market at this point in time. So look, for us, it's about leveraging our position that we have at the moment to continue to grow and continue to be successful in this market.
Very good. So next question I'm going to address to both John and George on the Canadian side of the panel. Are you guys eyeing expansion into the US, and if so, why and how? Do you believe that the US is on the cusp of federal legalization? I feel like outside of the US, people are more bullish on it than we happen to be here as it relates to cannabis legalization in a federal sense. So curious what you guys think and how you're looking at it across the border to the north.
Yeah, so from our side, we actually do have some nearer term U.S. exposure. As a federally regulated TSX listed company, we're prohibited from plant touching activities in the U.S., but we can sell our grow pods, we can sell cultivation equipment, and we can provide certain facility design consultation services across the U.S. So last calendar year, we actually built out facilities in Michigan and Maine. We're continuing that business pivot on our B2B segment and infrastructure segment to expand our sales force in the U.S., take a more targeted approach on those state-by-state markets that are legalizing for either recreational, medicinal use or both. The longer-term view is obviously, we want to proof our business model here in Canada. I think we've proven in the last calendar year that vertically integrated approach, can be profitable. It can be sustainable in a very difficult, very restricted, very regulated Canadian market and a very competitive market environment. Eagerly awaiting the opportunity to pivot and take that business model into the largest market in the world.
Nice.
I think from our perspective, we want to hone in our skills in Canada and make sure that we actually prove out exactly what we're done, and we're well on our way. Canadian market is still a $2.6 billion market, so plenty of room for you to be quite lucrative in this space. So we definitely want to continue to be disciplined, but for us to not say that we are looking at the US in every avenue would be inaccurate. Especially from our medical platform, we have over 300,000 lives within our what we call our captive marketplace, or the paid insured model in Canada. In the US, there's over 2 million of those bodies. So if we could turn this on in the US, it's quite lucrative for us. So we do have our eyes to the south, and we are quite excited by it. The other piece for us is that we're not just looking at the US. we have a panelist on there that has explained, the benefits of the UK. They've cornered the market quite well, but it fits quite well. It fits quite well with our model in how medical it is. And we, again, that is a marketplace that we are looking into, but we want to make sure that whatever our decision is, you don't just have unlimited capital to spend. And that's what I want to echo. So it needs to be smart decisions, and whatever we do needs to be accretive to our business. But we are looking south, and we are looking across the pond. So, we are looking for both sides of the business.
All right, Dean, you better give them a good market other than the UK across the pond then, huh? All right, so look, Adam, one specifically for you, would love to hear more about the decision to acquire the delivery platform company in California, how you see that growing, and then how are you leveraging what you've learned in California through the COVID period as it relates to delivery into the other markets that you're in?
Yeah, so going back again to my days of online food ordering, I know it takes 2 years to build a full tech stack, to build the infrastructure, to hire 250 drivers, to onboard them, and to bring on 1,000 SKUs. I felt like we just didn't have that time. We wanted to be out in front. We wanted to be forward thinking here. We wanted to be disruptive. And I want that data, right? The data means everything. I want to know what the consumers are doing, what they're looking for. And like I said before, I want to fill their needs, right? So if I know that consumers are looking for a specific sort of THC blended flower and a specific sort of packaging from a specific sort of grower, I want to be able to go out, curate that product, or grow it myself if I have the license in that specific state to fill the needs of those consumers. So the thought process was, we have to get into e-commerce and delivery. We don't have 2 years to build this thing. We have to buy, and we have to buy it now. Also, the tech stack that Driven had built themselves, which is customizable, we can leverage that state to state. So I can take the technology platform and tee up e-commerce and delivery through either my own licensed platform in other states, or partnering with large either retail operators or cultivators or a specific sort of license holder in other markets. Once again, if I didn't buy a company that had a customizable tech stack, there would be barriers, right? I wouldn't be able to build out specific APIs. So once again, that's why we bought Driven. We've learned a lot from this acquisition, more than I thought I was going to learn. I thought I knew everything about e-commerce and delivery. But there's a lot of nuances when you're dealing, like I said before, in cash or debit as it relates to this industry, because you can't use credit card processing. So we have the blueprint now to replicate this state by state wherever we're going to go. We announced in recently that Oregon will be our first expansion state. We have 3 retail locations that we own inside that market, one up in Portland and 2 down in Eugene. Those would be the first markets that we're going to turn on the Buddy platform for e-commerce and delivery next month. We've already hired drivers. We already have our cars there. We're already doing beta test runs. We're in the process now of building the API to link the 2 systems together, so it's centric for Oregon. So special deals, special portal geofencing, and that will be live next month. So really excited about that. And then after that, we'll start moving, I think, very aggressively across the country.
Nice. Right. Well, gentlemen, look, it's been great. Hopefully, we've kept everyone's attention here. A lot of interesting topics covered, and appreciate all that we've learned about each of your respective companies. Since we don't have a live audience and can't field any Q&A, I'll just open it up to you guys. Does anyone have any question that they want to propose to the group, or topic of discussion, or closing remarks? If you do, you can unmute, chime in. Otherwise, we'll thank everyone and sign off.
Thank you.
All right. It's been great. I appreciate the time, guys.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much. For full disclosure, I do not own any of the stocks of the companies that we're hosting on the panel today.